Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's workshop. Today we are going to be doing from game to training sim workshop here at CircuitStream. So before we jump into everything, I am just going to go over a few questions and a few things for everybody to be aware of. So before I jump too heavy into anything, I usually just like to check, can everybody see me okay? Can everybody hear me okay? Just going to pay attention to the chat here and make sure. Harry says, yes. Aletha, yes. Perfect. Awesome. All right. So that's good. And then on the side there, you're already, you found the chat engagement, but there's also going to be polls off to the side and then a questions tab too. So feel free to interact with the chat and the questions tab throughout the entire presentation. And then in terms of the polls, I'm going to publish a couple polls a little bit later on, probably while Aletha is up and doing her formal presentation. I'll publish those so that you can give us a little bit of feedback. And then I also like to check where is everybody joining us from here today. Feel free to put it in the chat there on the side. Austria, Charleston, England, Mexico, North Carolina, Germany. Awesome. Boston, Indiana, Calgary. Hello in Calgary. I'm in Calgary too. Well, perfect. Well, welcome everybody. Something I do want to note is that this presentation is going to be recorded here today. So if you have any questions or if there's any information that we mentioned that you want to go back over, of course, you can reach out to us and let us know, but you will get this full recorded presentation afterwards. So you can kind of reference it anytime or any of the information that we mentioned during the presentation. And without further ado here, I am going to share my screen and we can get into the presentation. Okay, so hopefully everybody can see my screen here. So I'll start with me, a little bit of a self-introduction here. So my name is Tyler Trapp. I'm in education partnership at CircuitStream. I come from about 10 plus years in hospitality and tourism, and I'm a little bit of a self-taught artist. I like to draw, I like to paint. And then more recently, I've been playing around with a little bit of digital art on my iPad Pro, which is super fun. And then for today, we've got Aletha Singleton. She's going to be taking care of the formal presentation. Aletha is one of our instructors here. She has over 22 years of design experience across multiple platforms, plus educational UX design for extended reality. So she's going to have a lot of valuable information to share with you here today. And then in terms of what we are going to do today, the agenda, we're in the introduction stage right now, so about 10-15 minutes. We are then going to move into the technical session. That's where Aletha's going to take over and teach all of the valuable information. Then we're going to do a little bit of wrap up in resources. That's where I'm going to pop back in. I'm going to share some information about our courses, our company overall, and then provide some information for you if you have any further questions, for us. And then we will jump into a little bit of a live Q&A at the end as well. So feel free to post questions in the questions tab or in the chat tab off to the side. We'll do our best to answer them as we go throughout the presentation. We do have some team members that will be chatting live, but then anything that's valuable or anything that we don't get to, we will make sure to post it up at the end and we can kind of go through it together as a group. So that is the agenda for today. So a little bit about CircuitStream really quickly, about who we are. We're an educational company. We were founded back in 2015. Our founders noticed a gap in personalized training and education for the XR industry. For anybody who's new or is not familiar with XR, XR is just a fancy umbrella term for both augmented and virtual reality. It stands for extended reality, XR. And to date, we've actually supported over 45,000 individual learners through XR and in Unity. The learners have taken part in our various workshops or courses over the years. And of course, this is a huge milestone for us. We're very, very proud to have achieved that. And then our team. So we have about 30, 35 experts coming in from all over the world, from different backgrounds. As you can see on the screen there, our headquarters is in Calgary, Alberta. That's actually where I am located as well. Today it's a little bit cloudy and rainy, but yeah, that's where we're located. And you can see on this screen, we do have people located all over the world. And then in terms of Unity being a certified training partner with CircuitStream, so there's certain things that, certain criteria that we have to achieve in order to be able to establish that partnership. Training partners are approved based on their expertise, on their focus of quality education, and on their commitment to providing the highest level of training available. So obviously we are meeting all of those criteria, which is why we are certified training partners with Unity directly. And then we also have some very impressive university partnerships. This portfolio is growing at a very rapid pace, but as you can see right now, we are partnered with the universities that are up on the screen. Like I said, we're in discussions. There will definitely be more of these added in the next few months to year. But our main courses, our development 10-week course and our design 10-week course, as well as our bootcamp, should be offered at all of the facilities that you can see on the screen there. And then, so CircuitStream is above all else. We're an educational company. We've had the pleasure of working with some of the top companies in the world. We could probably fill several pages with logos, but what we did here is just kind of put together a screen to show a little bit of the diversity with the companies that we work with. So a lot of people are under the assumption, if they're not in this world, that XR, augmented and virtual reality, is kind of living in a game space, and it does absolutely, but it's actually being used for industry use in a huge way right now as well, for training, educational purposes, whatever the case may be. There's a ton of different industries that are using XR development and design right now. So just gives you a little bit of a background on that. And then Unity, some of you might not be familiar with Unity. If you've seen this screen, then you probably are. This is the interface for Unity. And then even more specifically, there's a muffin clicker game on the screen here. This would be specific to our 4-week C# coding course. So if you've taken that, you probably recognize this specific game interface too. And then what is Unity? So Unity is a free 3D development engine for building games, simulations, and experiences, and it is the easiest way to do so. Unity is used to create over 60% of the world's AR and VR content and applications. And then in terms of a global impact, apps developed in Unity are downloaded about 3 billion times monthly. And the software is borderless. It's in use in over 190 countries globally at the moment and growing. And then what is, a lot of people ask kind of what our courses would do and what this breaks down to. So basically, it all starts with an idea. You would have an application idea, then you would build your assets and bring them into Unity and create immersive interactions using scripting and C# coding. Once you're happy with your build, you would need to leverage an SDK. Now, an SDK would be a software development kit, and that would ensure that your target device is compatible with your build. And then once you've done that, you can render it, publish it, and that's basically the full process. I mean, obviously, I've kind of shortened that a little bit to give you the idea, but that would be what the process would look like from start to finish. In terms of academic offerings, the courses that we offer here at CircuitStream, these would be our 3 main courses here. We have the 10-week XR development with Unity course. We have the 10-week interaction design and prototyping course. And then we also have our 24-week Unity developer bootcamp. All of these are live and they're all online. The classes are live taught and then also recorded. But that would be our 3 main courses that we have in our portfolio here. And I'm going to jump into those a little bit more after the main presentation, but just kind of sliding back over to that. So what we're going to learn today is how to research interactive games from an XR designer's view. We are going to learn how to ideate and analyze the game using the rose, thorn, and bud system. And we are going to learn how to use the research for transitioning a project into immersive environments. So with that being said, I am going to flip this back over. See if this lets me do it here. There we go. I'm going to close the screen for now, and I'm going to invite Aletha up onto the stage so that she can begin the formal part of the presentation here.
Hello. Hi, Andre. How are you doing?
Hello.
Somebody in the chat.
Oh.
Hello. Welcome, everyone. Are you ready for me to just get started, or?
Yeah. Without
Okay.
further ado, I can let you take over. So I'll jump out of the way here and just give me a shout, and I'll pop back in once you're done.
Okay, cool.
Okay, cheers.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So, hi, I'm Aletha Singleton. I'm one of the instructors here at CircuitStream, and I also create a lot of educational content around XR and design and UX in XR. And one of the things that I do to help people gain experience and to learn more about the UX best practices is I do a stream on Thursdays at 12 p.m. Central that where I play through games and I talk through them from a UX designer's perspective. And then we go through the rose thorn bud method that you'll see where we analyze it, what's good about it, what's not so good about it, what could we do to make it better, what are some follow-up things, and then I talk about what would we think about if this were a XR experience or if we want to transition it into XR, should it be? Because not everything should be, as some things are just it depends on the application and what it is that the purpose of it. So we will discuss that. So this is just a really, really short version of that. And the reason that we talk through games is because XR, VR development are very, very heavily influenced by gaming. And I've seen this in my own usability research when I've conducted research with humans on XR experiences. My experiences in training sims is that the people that come from a gaming background are constantly comparing and saying, well, I would expect it to behave this way because this is how it behaves in gaming and so forth. So there is a very direct correlation there and in expectations and mental models for gamers. And so I decided pretty early in my transition into the space that I needed to start gaming to understand more of it. And so, and I encourage you, if you want to understand design for any kind of experience, it doesn't have to be games. You can still play games to study and learn. And that is actually one of the awesome things about getting into this space is you get to game to advance your career and to enhance your understanding of XR, which is pretty awesome. So they'll share links to all of that stuff whenever they can. So what I'm going to do today is usually for the stream, I'll go through the pillars of gaming UX and talk about that from the book by Celia Hodent, The Gamer's Brain. And there's a link to that too that they'll share out so that you can watch and learn that more because we don't really have time to go into the pillars of gaming UX today because that we are a shorter session today. But I'll talk through those so that we have that fresh on our minds and then we'll play the game and talk about that. But then since we go by genre, and if you watched last week's talk with Circuit Stream, you would have seen the reports. Oh yeah, she says in the chat, you can get all the links in your reminder emails that were shared out. And if you've signed up when you sign up for this, you'll get a reminder email and it should all be in there. And I'm trying to remember what I was just saying. So we've been going by genre, and last week I did my report out of playing through the tabletop RPG genre, and you can go check that back out on Circuit Stream YouTube if you want to see that talk of my report out of that. And so I've been going by genre. So I did tabletop RPGs and I did platformers, and now we're doing training simulations. And at the end of this, I'll also have a report out, and you can also learn the UX best practices for training in XR that I've already written in those links that are being shared out with you. So let's go ahead and get into the game. Let's see if this works. And what I'm doing is what's called competitive landscaping, where there is this full UX design process, and this is only a part of it. You do upfront research with your target audience to understand them and their needs to make sure that you're designing an experience that is going to be tailor-made to them without making any kind of assumptions. And then once we get that research, designers will do, are y'all able to see my screen? Let's see. I need to move this so I can actually see what you're saying. Stream's coming through well. Okay. So this is what we would call competitive landscaping, where we go in and we'll play games that already exist, see what's already out there, see what's good about them, what's bad about them, what could we do to improve things and fill in gaps of to make our experience better. And so let's go ahead and get started. And I'm using a mouse and keyboard. I'm not used to using a mouse and keyboard, but that's one of the things that is important to know about VR is that you need to provide support for multiple controllers because if you're, especially if you're doing cross-platform or PC-based VR experiences, you're going to need to support multiple controllers. This one only supports the Xbox game controller and the keyboard and mouse. I have a PlayStation. It will PlayStation controller. It will work with that controller, but the tooltips are mapped to the Xbox, so that makes it a lot more cognitive load for me to translate the Xbox controller onto the Sony controller buttons because I don't have an Xbox controller or I'd be using it. So that is something very important to remember when you are designing for XR is to make sure that your tooltips, especially in training simulations, make sure your tooltips match the controller and you support the controllers and so that you're reducing the amount of cognitive load on people. So one of the things that I like at the very beginning of this is, remember, this is not a training sim, this is a video game, but we're going to look at it as if it were and talk about it as if it were. One of the first things I like is that this entire workshop is in white, except for the things that you're going to actually be focusing on. And that is allowing you to focus on things. So whenever people first get into an experience and they're new to VR, and most of the people that are going through VR training are new to VR. Remember, we're not our target audience. They don't get as much exposure to VR as we do. That there's this awe factor and it can be overwhelming. So they're going to have a hard time focusing at first. But in addition to that awe factor, they're supposed to be learning something. So we have to remember that whenever we're designing a training experience or any kind of VR experience, an onboarding experience, that we need to help them focus so that they can learn and then let them explore later once they're ready, if that's part of that experience. So I like that the whole workshop here is white. And then only the things that you need to focus on are in color. And then you'll see that the phone, which is the first thing that we're supposed to be doing based on the little tutorial orders window in the top left corner. I can't use my mouse to point to it because my mouse is now my camera. You'll see that there is a list of objectives that I'm supposed to carry out. And it's highlighting the phone, so I know to go over to the phone. That's my first step, which is a good way of directing people to get them through a training or a tutorial. And so whenever I hover over the phone, you'll see that there's a tooltip that comes down in the middle of the bottom screen telling me what to use. But I have to hide my screen share thing because it is blocking my view of the tooltips. Okay. Okay, so we've got our orders, and another thing that is interesting about this is that sorry that it's laggy for people. Is it good for everyone, or is everyone having trouble? It's a video game, and Livestorm is probably not great for video games. Probably wasn't meant for video games. So we've got a lot of things that are grayed out and disabled, and it's good to help keep people focused on what they're doing by graying out what they can or can't use during the tutorial. It is very important to keep people focused on what they're doing and not let them get distracted by a lot of things going on. So I'm going to click on Salem. It's already clicked on. Welcome to Car Mechanics Simulator. In this tutorial, we'll teach you the basics of mechanics in the game, handling orders, changing fluids and oil, changing tires, and servicing the spring compressor. We're probably not going to have time to go through everything, but we will at least change the oil. So let's go ahead and take that order. So one of the first things that I don't like is that it changed my orientation and location for me. So I would have preferred to be still over here by the phone, and then I can walk up to the car and see what's going on, because especially in VR, it can be disorienting to just suddenly change someone without warning, say change someone's location or move them without warning. So if they're in this space anyway, unless of course you're changing scenes, then it's fine. But if you're still in the same scene, just let them take the order and then go over to the car. And this way I would see immediately this thing is already on the riser, on this lift. So I don't have to drive it on the lift or anything. I can see, I can be acquainted with the scene without having to step back and look at it to see what's going on here. And the thing that you're supposed to be doing next is highlighted. Again, open the hood. So that's a good thing to highlight whatever it is they're supposed to be working on next, as long as it is doing training for knowledge versus competency. If you were doing competency, you wouldn't necessarily highlight the next thing because that would give away the answer. But if you're just teaching them initially, you want to highlight the objects they're supposed to be interacting with. So it wants us to click on the windshield washer reservoir. I guess we're checking fluids. One of the interesting things about this is all of the hoses and belts are missing. If this were a realistic training, you would want to keep everything in there because they're going to need to be able to distinguish what's what. They're not going to be able to pull out all the hoses every time they work on a car in real life. And you also don't want to do what just happened here in XR, which is they panned in the camera and zoomed in. Not only is that disorienting in XR, but it can also risk motion sickness. So you would want to think of a different way of doing that. You could fade out the car and bring the reservoir into focus without moving or panning the camera. And that would be a more useful solution than just doing it this way. Again, remember that in XR, motion sickness is a really big factor. So we're going to take off the reservoir cap, and it moved me again. Don't do that in XR. So I need to hold on it, and it moved my view again. So yeah, in real space, you could just move the objects within the space and don't move the person because again, it's disorienting, and even in 2D for me, that's annoying. Just move the objects, not me. Add fluid. So to add fluid, I have to hold down. And it automatically stopped once it got too close to the fill line. And close, escape. Change my view again. Okay. So now I have to use the upper button to lift the car. And the upper button is over here. If I were looking down at the car, what you would do is have some kind of wayfinding arrow within the space pointing me to look over here to see this lift button, because I may not see it if I'm in the headset looking down at the car. So and another thing that I would do is add safety training around this whole setup, because this is a lift on a car. If there are other people around, if there are other objects around, you would want to clear the space to make sure nothing gets hit by the car as it's moving up and down, or no people get hit by the car as it's moving up and down. So if you're training, you would want to include all of that, assuming that this is for a brand new worker, which I'm assuming it is if all of you are teaching them right now is to change the oil and check the fluids. So now again, the oil drain is not in my line of sight, so I would use some kind of in-world wayfinding, like an arrow saying look that way to go get the oil drain. And then move equipment. And it grays out what you can and can't do at the time, which is also good. You're giving them focus on what to do. In XR, you would just let them grab it to pick it up and move it. And move it over to car lift A. I'm assuming it's car lift A because car lift B is not available. And now it moved it for me. And it's saying use the oil drain to get rid of the old oil. One of the things that it's not teaching me right now is how to find the cap for the oil. so that I can remove the oil. So if this were real training, you would want to know how to find the oil cap in all of the different car parts. And then put it in its place, return it to its place, put the equipment back. And one thing, again, that it did not teach me was how to put the oil cap back on it, or to tell me to do that, because that's an important step so that all of the oil that you're about to put back in it doesn't fall out again. Click on the suspension. And it's not teaching me how to get to this oil filter through everything else to make sure that I'm working on the right thing. So you would want to pay attention to all of this detail when you're actually doing training and not skip any steps. And don't pan and zoom in for them. Hold down to take off the part and use the right, open the pie menu and change to part mount mode. So I'm opening the pie menu. Only thing I can use is part mount. So everything else is grayed out, which is good. It's, again, it's focusing them on what they're learning right now. And apparently I've got the part, so now I'm going to mount the part by holding it and selecting on the new oil filter. And now I am supposed to go lower the car again. And now I need to click on the engine. I guess I'm continuing to change the oil now. One of the things that it's not doing anywhere in here, and again, don't zoom people in XR, is it's not teaching any of the whys of anything. You want to always include the whys in what you're doing and what you're training people on so that they understand, and include any safety or tips or anything, like adding fluid here. There's an issue here because how do I know when this is full? Because I can hold this down all day. How do I know when it's full? How can I see that? I don't know. It's not teaching me that. So I have no idea. And so now we're going to move on to changing the wheel. How are we on time? This is going to start going through the wheel, suspension, changing the wheel and everything. What I don't like about the order list right now is that I can't reference the full work order list. At least I don't think I can, unless I can go back to the phone and look at it. Because I want to see where no, I can't. So I want to see where I am in this process of things that I'm doing, things that I'm learning. So I can remember and review the step-by-step process, but it's not letting me do that. One thing that you want to do is let people reference and remember and learn. That's one of the ways I learn, is by looking back. What did I do? What was the sequence? So that why? So that we can reinforce learning. So we're going to take off the wheel. Okay. And again, don't zoom people in. One of the things that it's not teaching me here, another step that it's skipping, is it's not teaching me about the pneumatic wrench and how to properly use the pneumatic wrench to remove the screws or to operate the pneumatic wrench, period. Because if I'm a brand new to this whole process of being a car mechanic, that's one of the things I need to learn how to use, is the tools as well. And it didn't teach me how to operate this oil changer. I just clicked on it and it worked. I just clicked on, it's missing a ton of steps, yeah. So again, this is video game, so fine. But if it were an actual training sim, you would not want to skip all of those very important steps. So now I need to go to the tire changer. And again, so since it's in the back corner, use wayfinding in this space. Don't change my view or anything. Just say, look over here. Okay, it's behind here. So now I go over to the tire changer and to separate the tire from the wheel. And so this is something new I learned. That's what that thing does. And so now I take off those tires. And one thing I don't like is that this is a red minus sign. To me, that makes it seem like that's a bad thing. Don't do that when all we're doing is removing parts from the tire changer, which isn't a bad thing. So pick install option from the pie menu. It's the only thing I can do, so that's helping me focus. Install. New tire onto the rim. And so now it's putting the brand new tire on the rim. And take the wheel. And where's the wheel balance? Oh, this is the wheel balancer. So again, wayfinding. And we pick balance from the pie menu. And then we need to, so I'm assuming that this is showing you what's on that screen that is blurred out right now. There's a screen to the side, and I guess this is how you balance the wheel. So I need to use the A and D buttons to rotate the tire to the green spot. And then hit the space bar to balance and then repeat. And now the wheel's balanced. Okay, and take it off and approach the car and put it back on. So if I remember correctly, last time I did this, we're just putting the wheel back on. Open the pie menu. It's not reminding me how to open the pie menu. There wasn't a hover that I saw when I moved my mouse over. Again, they don't have to, you're not teaching them how to interact with the virtual environment. You're teaching them how to interact, or you're teaching them what they're supposed to be doing, what they're learning, which is changing a tire. So in this case, you would be, I should be focusing on that. And so you want to make this easy to use so that their attention is not on how to interact with the virtual environment. Their focus should be on what they're learning. Could there be driving simulators of the future? Driving training? I think there already are. My sister actually used one when she learned to drive. And that was back in the 80s. Mount the wheel. Hold to mount the wheel. And so now, again, it needs to teach me proper use of the pneumatic wrench so that I don't over strip these nuts on the car, on the tire, because that's going to be a major problem if the tire gets a flat tire in the future and you need to change your tire. If you overstrip those nuts, then it's gonna be much harder for the person changing the tire on the side of the road to get those nuts back off, those bolts back off, because if you overstrip it. So that was another thing that should have been taught there, is the proper use of that pneumatic wrench to not overstrip the nuts and the bolts on that, so that people can change the tire when they need to, but still giving them the right tension and so forth. So there's a lot of things, and it also didn't teach me, you need to actually air this tire up so that they don't drive out of there with a flat tire. And I think that we have talked enough about this right now. I'm going to switch to the rose thorn bud. So we would go through this whole experience and then talk through it. So then what I do at the end of this experience is we'll do this rose thorn bud method where I'm doing a critical analysis on it. So let me stop sharing this and then go back to Chrome. How's everyone doing so far? My father was a mechanic. I used to watch him. So that's the only reason I know any of that. So let me share my browser. Oh yeah, I build furniture too. Yeah, he used to build furniture too, so I would watch him do that. Okay. So now you should see my Chrome window with my Miro board. And so at the end of each training session, we do rose third bud exercise. And roses are what went well, what was a highlight, what did you like? And then thorns are what didn't go well, what was a low point, what did you not like? And what opportunities do you see are the buts? What opportunities do you see? What would you do differently next time? What questions do you have? What are any follow-ups that you would want to do coming out of this? Any follow-up questions, any next steps or anything? So the reason that you want to write down the roses is that you want to keep in mind all of the good things that are going on here. And you can use this exercise to analyze anything. It's just a critical thinking method for experiences. You could do this for a trip to Disney World. You could do this for an event that you've put on. You can do this for how your team works together, or a project, or an actual evaluation of something like this sim. So that you want to keep track of what a lot of people like to do is only focus on what's going wrong, but you want to focus on what's going right, first of all, because you don't want to remove those things, because you want to keep those things in mind and keep those things in the future and keep doing that. And so you keep those things in mind, and it's also good for morale as well. But what's good? And then you keep the thorns separate so that you know, okay, this is what we need to work on. And then ideally every thorn should have at least one bud with it. And you want to keep the thorns separate from the buds. A lot of people like to mix them up and put the buds in the thorns as a part of the thorn, but you want to keep them separate so that you have a very distinct list: what's working, what's not working. This is what we're going to do about it. Or this is what we're going to think about when we create ours. And this is also good. And if you've watched, you can watch all my previous streams on demand. I've actually done this synthesis in the past for the platformers, and you can watch how I do that. And I synthesized all of the different games that I had played into one big Miro board of rose thorn buds, and then I use that to create a report. And you saw an example of the report on the tabletop RPG talk that I did last week. So lots of examples out there of this research method for you to go back and learn from. And so some of the things that I liked about this car mechanic simulator was that the environment starts with the objects being white, except for the things that you're learning about. And the equipment that I'm learning about is in full color, and that helps with the focus when you're dealing with this awe factor and people getting distracted by lots of things, which is a good thing. And you'll also notice when I'm doing these Post-its that they're very short and concise. They're not complete sentences. It's not a dissertation. It's just very short, concise notes so that we can take this and then convert it into whatever, a report, a presentation, a visual, infographic, whatever we need to do with it. Writing the long report dissertation immediately is going to make it harder to translate that into other outputs later. So, and it also starts with the phone highlighted as the first step, because that's the first thing that you do. The task goal list is in that top left corner, and it stays there. What's the next thing you're supposed to be working on? The tooltips show when you're hovering over the objects, and disabling the menu items that aren't relevant to the tutorial was good, because that's helping you focus on what you're learning. And then we're giving good informative feedback on the buttons that were disabled for the steps that were already taken. I know we missed that in this part because I hadn't gotten that far, but I had tried to do something and it says you've already done that, so you're good, continue on to the next thing, which was a good feature. And then the balance wheel option, the wheel's already balanced, so that's what I was talking about. I had already balanced the wheel, and so I wasn't sure that I had already balanced it, so I hit it again. I think I wasn't paying attention. So automatically animating the steps that are not relevant to learning, like adding a nut to a bolt. But again, now in the Thorns, the controller tooltips were only for the Xbox, even though it does support the PlayStation. That's something that you want to think about in XR. You want to support the multiple controllers, and if you're doing cross-platform, you want to support the multiple controllers, especially on PC based, because they can switch out controllers for headsets, like Index can work with the Vive and so forth. So you want to be able to switch out the controllers, and you want to make sure that the tooltips match the controllers so that they're focusing on what they're learning in the sim, not how to interact with it. And then it doesn't include safety training, which we mentioned earlier, for example, the car lift safety, and they're not covering some of the basic issues that you need to go over for newbies. And it doesn't include the importance of not overstripping the wheel nuts with the pneumatic wrench. And it's not covering the concepts of normal and reverse threads for pivoted components. Because if you've ever messed with a bicycle, you'll see that sometimes the nuts and bolts go on opposite of the way that the you would expect, because if you put them on the normal way, it would just make the bolt come off. So there's this whole concept of how to do the reverse threads when there is a pivoted component, because you don't want the bolt to fall off while they're driving down the road. So they didn't cover that. And they are also skipping very important steps that you're supposed to be training on, like teaching them how to change the oil, but you're not showing them where to find the cap to remove the old oil. And it's not teaching you to make sure that you put the cap back on. All of those things were auto-animated, and they shouldn't have been. And then the camera is also auto panning and zooming to view the parts up close, and that causes a risk of motion sickness and disorientation if you were doing this in XR. And there's no way of knowing how to tell when there's enough oil added. It didn't teach me that, and there's no indicator to see that I noticed. And there is also an inconsistency in interactions. Like when I was adding the wiper fluid, it automatically stopped pouring when the reservoir was full, but when I was adding the oil, it just kept flowing. It never stopped. So then I don't know when you're supposed to stop. And then after a few steps in the tutorial, the tooltips go away when the next steps to open the pie menu. I had to stop and remember which button to push, and you saw that happen. And then you can't reference the full order list. Remember, I was trying to reference it to see how many steps I've done and what's next in there without just I wanted to see bigger context than what I was just seeing in the list that was on the window. So I'm not sure how many steps I've done and how much was left in the order. How do I solidify my ability to fill the order if I don't see the order? That's something that's important. If they are fulfilling an order that you have filled out for them to do their work, they need to also understand how to read that order, but we weren't giving them that order. We were just teaching them the steps. So they do need to learn how to read the order to understand it and fill it correctly. And when the next step's out of the field of view, sometimes it's a little hard to figure out where to go. So you have to look around and figure it out. They do have the glowing objects on there, which is good, but you still have to stop and take the time to see where you're going. And then, so you'll see I have lines coming out of each thorn. That is which bud is going to apply to which thorn. Some have same multiple solutions for them. So in improving this thorn, we would want to add tooltips for each controller that we support. And for safety training, you would want to make sure that your training is thorough for a new employee or a novice. You want to work with experienced trainers and SMEs to make sure that you are thoroughly covering the content that you need to cover in your safety training. It's very important to have experienced trainers and SMEs on your project team consulting with you, so that you can make sure that it is included. It's a very important part of training new people so that they don't make mistakes, because a lot of the mistakes are made by new people. and you want to not take for granted that everyone else knows what you know. So, for example, a pneumatic wrench, the reverse threads, and so forth. And there's also, this isn't tied to a thorn. This was just a another potential thing to improve it even more, was to give more focus by having the full environment white except for the next step that you're doing. And then it can fill in with color as you do more steps, right? So when we first loaded into that environment, everything was white except everything that we were going to be working on. It could have taken it further by saying only the phone's white. Okay, now we're going to the lift. Now that goes into color. And then as we added the new steps, then things start coming into color as you learn about them. That was a potential improvement, like bringing it further. And then the camera auto panning and zooming, you want to make sure that the player has full control of motion, so that you could, like I was saying, like think about in the real world when things move. Is the world, yes, the world's moving. We know the world's moving, but we don't feel it because we're moving with it. But when you see objects move in the world, the object is moving, not you. You're not zooming into you're not auto zooming into anything. You're not auto panning into anything. So you could have the parts move without the person moving. And you just have to be careful with how you do it so that it's not flying in their face and freaking them out or something. There are other ways of solving that problem, like pulling out the part instead of auto zooming, or doing an X-ray vision so they can see the part in the car without everything else obscuring it. So for don't know how to tell when enough oil, just teach them how to tell when there's enough oil in there. And then inconsistency in interaction, you want to make sure that all of your interactions are consistent to reduce confusion. And you want to keep the tooltips. Those are only going to help you. After a few steps in the tutorial, those tooltips go away. Keep them. They're only going to help. They're not going to hurt. You want them to focus on the content they're learning, not how to interact with the space. And then you want to provide them a way to reference the full order list, because especially, again, that's something that they're learning, like a checklist. They need to understand how to do that if they're going to be self-sufficient in their job. So teach them that. Teach them how to look at the order and fulfill it instead of just telling them what to do next. And then you want to add wayfinding to your next steps whenever the next step's out of your field of view, like a flashing arrow and spatial audio. It's better to use multiple senses than just one sense. And again, you can learn more about the UX best practices for training in XR on my website. They're sharing the links in the email. And so if we were to translate that into XR, I've already talked about a lot of things that you would want to keep in mind, but starting the environment white with only the focused objects in color is a great idea for XR, because it takes care of that initial awe factor by preventing them from being overwhelmed, which is one of the big things that is a thing with new people to XR, is they get overwhelmed and content overload. And so how do we help them focus and get over that awe factor? This helps them to learn, focus on what they're learning. And then animation motion sickness are always very important factors anytime you're doing any kind of XR. You want to keep that in mind. And I do cover that as well in the links that are provided. So you don't want to auto pan or zoom, and you want to use other methods to direct attention besides auto panning and zooming the camera for them. And you want to use wayfinding within the environment to direct people where to look. And that is all I had for this. Tyler, did you want to come back up?
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Perfect. Awesome. You just summoned me back, right?
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Okay, good. I thought my sound was cutting out there for a second, so I was like, I hope that you invited me back. So perfect. Awesome. So I am going to jump in and share a little bit more information here. In just a second, I'm going to share my screen, but thank you, Aletha, obviously for doing the presentation here with us today. It was great. So I'm actually going to get you to hold tight for a little bit so that we can do some Q&A, if that's okay. I've been looking at
Yep.
the questions at the side there, and I think there's a few that we can do. But yeah, if you just hop off for a quick second, I'll go through and share some course info. Perfect. Awesome. So just give me one quick second here, folks. I'm going to share my screen again, or attempt to anyway here. Okay. There we go. Perfect. So we are just going to go through a couple resources here quickly to share a little bit of info for the courses that we offer, anything here at CircuitStream. So let me just get this here. So this is some examples of some of our students' work. This would be creating some scenes in Unity. This is one of my favorite things to go through, taking a look at the actual work that the students are doing as they go through our courses. And then this would be some examples of using Vuforia to do AR through iOS or through phone and applications like that. And then C# scripting, this is just showing some examples of the C# scripting work that the students would have done too. So we've got lots of this. If you ever want to look at examples, you can check out our blogs. Our website has a whole bunch of resources there. And then, of course, any of the staff here at the company can share that info with you too. That was just a couple quick examples. Our students here at CircuitStream, I said before, we've taught over 45,000 students. So to put them all on one page would be quite difficult, but this is just an example of a few students here to kind of give you an idea of what they're doing now, where they're working after they've gone through courses with us. And again, this is all recorded. So if you want to reference any of this, if I go too quickly, you will have a copy of this full presentation afterwards. Now, quickly, I wanted to note our self-paced video course. We do have an Intro to AR course available through our website. You just go in, you purchase it individually. It's 6 hours, I believe, somewhere between 6 and 8 hours, and it's completely self-paced. The whole goal there is just to teach you kind of your first, building of an AR app to see, if it's for you, if it's exciting, if it's something that you're interested in doing. We also offer our 10-week XR development course. The upcoming start date that we have here for this one would be July 26th. These cohorts run every 2.5 to 3 months. So there'll be a few more that we still have available for the remainder of this year, but July 26th would be the upcoming cohort. The 10-week courses are beginner friendly. Basically, if you're coming in and you kind of have an understanding of what you're going to be learning, there's no prior experience required for development, for design, or even with Unity. The courses are set up to be beginner friendly. If you do have some mixed experience, obviously we would just guide you and kind of move it towards an XR specific education in that sense. The classes are live, they're online, they're also recorded. The courses are portfolio based, so you will end up having a portfolio of projects once you complete. I think you finish this course with about 6 or 7. And then the idea is obviously you get the certification, but then also the portfolio too. And then there's options for weekly one-on-one support. This is just going to quickly kind of show some of the universities. Realistically, I probably could have put this into one, but all of the course here, course start dates for the development are going to be July 26th. That's all these are saying. You can see the start dates listed. Now, in regards to the interaction design and prototyping course, very, very similar to the XR development course, also 10 weeks. It's online. Everything is recorded. The main difference, I guess, is that the focus here is going to be on design through XR, not on development. So you're not going to be learning any of the coding or the scripting. You kind of stay far away from that side of things, and then focus more on the interactions and the prototyping. So otherwise, the course is structured very similarly. The upcoming start date for this one here, the next cohort is July 13th. And then similarly, this is just going to show that July 13th is the available start date for the universities that we've got here too. And then we also have our Unity Developer Bootcamp. So this one would be for students who have a little bit of experience, hopefully with coding and with Unity. The course itself definitely jumps into XR development, but it goes beyond that and kind of focuses on Unity development as a whole. So it's you can see on the screen here, it's teaches you C# coding. You're going to build 10 plus projects, including one that's your own idea, which is great. Industry recognized certification. So lots of fun stuff there that we can chat about. But the upcoming cohort for the developer bootcamp would be October 11th, 2022. So just feel free to reach out to any of the staff here if you have any questions for that. And then we have an XR Design Power course. So this is something that we're running on July 9th. It's also going to be run by Aletha here. It's a 5-hour live online course. Basically, the point here is to take you from concept to prototype in the 5-hour period. You're going to learn the difference between web design and VR design, and you're going to research best practices while creating your own VR prototype of a travel planning booking experience. So that's going to be the focus of the 5-hour project there. So this course is $99. In total, we had 25 seats available. I believe at the current moment, we only have about 4 or 5 seats left. So if you are interested in signing up for this, it's going to be an amazing workshop July 9th. Just please let any of the staff here know, and we can definitely take a look and confirm if we have a seat left for you there. And then for certifications at Circuit Stream, so I mentioned before that we are partnered with Unity. So all of our certifications would be considered, backed by Unity as our certified partner. But the 3 courses, developer, bootcamp development with Unity, and then the interaction design would all come with the badges with our certification here backed by Unity. And then the exception here would be the bootcamp. The 6-month bootcamp also comes with an additional certification option through Unity directly. So Unity's website, they offer their own levels of certification in addition to our certification. Both are industry recognized and amazing. The benefit to having both of those would be that you get networking options on both sides. So CircuitStream has a huge internal network. Unity has a massive internal network. Having certifications on both sides just allows you to kind of network and interact with people who have taken those courses or have gone through and are XR developers and designers. And then let's jump at the community here. Yeah, so we've got tons of support here. We have office hours every single week. So outside of the courses being live taught and then also recorded that you can go back, we offer office hours that you can go on. You can chat with the instructors outside of the class times, and they make themselves available 1 hour each of those days throughout the week. Outside of that, I mean, our Slack community is pretty large. You can always post questions and information there, even outside of the office hours. And whenever the staff or anybody sees it, of course, we're going to be interactive and respond to that too. So we also have, events and coffee hours, show and tells, demo days, game jams, just lots of fun stuff for students to stay interactive even after they've completed the courses with us. Really cool thing, I always say this, but specifically for the XR development and the 10-week interaction design, there really is no experience required. So we always say beginners have no fear. It's one of the biggest forms of hesitation that we would get as people just, interested, but thinking that they might need a little bit more education before starting the courses with us, which is just not the case. So, and then pricing, very important to note the pricing. The starter and plus package options, these would be available for both our development 10-week course and our design 10-week course. The starter package is going to be the full course, kind of as we've described here. The plus package, the benefit is that you get an additional 4 weeks of C# coding and scripting. Obviously, this works really well with students taking the development course, but also students on the design side, if they want to have a bit of a fundamental understanding of the coding and scripting, might better support their career or whatever their goal is going through this education. That's obviously an option for them too. And then the plus package also comes with 10 hours of private one-on-one support with the instructors. So you basically get to schedule 10 individual hour sessions with the instructor during or after your course. There's a bit of a window at the end of your course to complete them. And you can go off script. You can focus on anything that you like, XR related, even if it's outside of the course curriculum that we're running through. So that's the pricing for the 2 main 10-week courses. For the bootcamp, we have early bird and standard pricing. So if you do register and complete your registration process for the bootcamp prior to July 20th of this year, the early bird pricing drops down to $13,495. Outside of that, though, if you just do the standard registration leading up to the start date there, you would be able to access the $14,995, which is the standard rate. And then we do also have finance plans available. This would go for all 3 of the courses I just mentioned there. So if you were looking at doing either the 10-week courses or the 6-month boot camp, you can go through Climb financing if you are located in the US. For any students outside of the US, you would just we would offer finance plans, I should say, directly through CircuitStream. So if you have any questions on that, just reach out and let us know. We can provide more info there. The lovely admissions team here. You can see some of the faces up on screen: Leanne, Stella, Roham, Shoshana. They take care of most of our student enrollments through the universities or individuals looking to enroll directly through CircuitStream. And then this one here, again, I'm going to provide a copy recording to everybody who's attending this, but this is just some links here. If you were looking to access course information at some of the universities, or at the very bottom there, the CS just obviously stands for CircuitStream directly. So and then we're going to jump into Q&A. One thing I did want to mention, though, is on June 30th, we will be hosting an open house. It's going to be interaction design breakdown with Sandra Feng. And so it's from what I've seen and what I hear, it's going to be a really, really great open house, and it's going to be focused specifically on the interaction design component. So if you're interested in that, registration should be free for all of our open houses. You can just go through circuitstream.com, click on the workshop tab and register, fill out your information for that one. Again, it will be June 30th that one's happening, and I believe the registration should be open on our website right away. And then without further ado here, I'm going to see if I can get back over to the main screen. There we go. Perfect. All right, so that's it. That's it for the formal part of the presentation here. We are going to go through some Q&A, just answer any sort of questions or go over any final information with you if you like. So I can invite Aletha back up onto the stage. And while she's popping in, I'm just going to go over to the questions tab here and see if we've got a couple that we can put up here. Looks like our team's been pretty active. They've been answering some of them. So are the 10-week courses full-time? Dayon already responded to that, but no, they're all part-time. Those ones would be 2 classes a week, each 90 minutes, and then everything's recorded, like I said. Are switch controllers supported? Harry wanted to know.
I'm assuming on that game. I'm not sure. I don't have Switch controllers, so I didn't look into it. But I know they, at the minimum, had Xbox.
They probably do then, I would guess, but I shouldn't say.
I mean, they supported PlayStation because that's what I have, PlayStation 4 controller, but the tooltips were Xbox.
Oh, okay.
So.
Okay. Yeah, too bad we're not a little closer. I'd let you use the switch on the ground behind me there.
Thank
you. Okay, so this one's good for you, I guess. How big was the team, and if you know this, I should say, but how big was the team that built the car mechanics simulator? And would that be possible to build the entire thing as a solo developer?
I would not recommend building a game. That game was much bigger. All we did was a tutorial. That game is a huge game. There's a ton you can do with it. I would not recommend you doing a game as a solo developer unless it's a very small game, because there's a lot that goes into it, and you want to have. That game was made by, I think it's called Red Dot. They make a bunch of games. They made multiple versions of Car Mechanic Simulator, and they made House Flipper, if you've heard of that one. They do both VR and desktop games. And I didn't get a chance to look at the size of their team. I was trying to look it up because I saw this question, but their site isn't loading for me, and I don't want to crash Chrome. I'm being very cautious here because I'm having issues with Chrome. So it's like, no, I'm not messing with it. So, but I'm sure they have a team because they made a lot of games. But you want to have a minimum of a good developer and somebody shared a YouTube video for you. So you want to have a minimum of a developer. You want someone who's good with the human-centered design part of it, and you're going to want a visual designer to create your UI elements and modelers to create your models and rig them and all that. So there's going to be a team of people. It's going to be a lot of work for you to do that by yourself. So unless you don't need sleep, I would recommend a team.
Okay, and then this one's, I'm going to post this one up and let you kind of read it. if I've built a VR training for safety and standalone for Oculus, would I have to remove the XR origin and controllers and substitute first-person game player controller to make a WebGI build?
To make it WebGL. I
GL?
don't know the technical side of that. WebGL, yeah, I don't know. Does anyone else in chat know that answer? I don't know that answer because I've never done anything for WebGL.
And that's something we can connect with
I know what you
you.
mean by XR origin and controllers, but yeah, I don't know about WebGL.
We'll take a look in the chat, Eric, if anybody's sharing info on that, and if not, reach out to us here individually. We can take a look and see if there's anybody on the instructor team that might have more info for you there too. I'll move that one there. And then let's see, accessibility is so important. How is this being incorporated into the XR industry? And are there any resources for UX UI designers specific to XR? Put this up here. Oops.
So there is a YouTube channel called Ally VR. I'll type it in the chat. It's A11Y VR. It's on YouTube. They are an organization that's just talking all about accessibility and VR. I have some research that I've done, but I haven't published yet. I need to do more research on it before I publish anything. But Allies is actively working on it. And there you go. Dayan just put it in there. So
perfect.
In the chat.
Awesome. Okay, yeah, so just look for the info in the chat there. And let's see, can we get the record of the course in our mail? Are you looking for course like
of this, I
syllabus?
think.
Oh, of this, yeah, this will be recorded and you'll definitely get this in your mail.
Of this.
Yeah, sorry, it was answered already. The webinar will be recorded. Perfect. Okay, so I think that's it for the everything that we had outstanding in the questions tab. I'm going to scroll back up and see. No, I think we've hit those all. And then I can see people are very active in the chat tab. They're looking to get registered for the $99 session that you're doing there. So that's perfect. I don't know if we have any seats left. We might have just filled that up, but which is great. It's a good problem to have. So, well, awesome. If there's any final questions there, feel free to pop them into the chat or off to the side there now. And then if not, I guess we can look at getting this wrapped up here for today. Let me just see.
Maggie says they have a question that.
Yeah. How do you create the models you used in your simulator? That was the question that Maggie had there.
Are you talking about the car mechanics simulator? I didn't create that one, if that's what you're referring to. But there are tons of tools out there. Oh yeah, I wasn't on the team for that, so I don't know how they did it. But there's a lot of tools out there that you can use. Maya. And Blender. Blender's free if you want to check out Blender. Blender's the only free one that I'm aware of, and it's pretty robust.
Awesome. We've got some hearts and some thumbs up. It's always a good sign. And then Dayon just shared, for anybody looking there, Dayon just shared the link one more time in the chat for the open house. That's the one that's happening next week, so feel free to register for that one too. And I think that is it. Oh, Paul just noted that Unity also has a free version.
And Maya has a free version? Cool.
Yeah, and Maya does. Cool. Well, that's it. I guess we can end it there for today. If there's any questions that anybody has that we didn't get to, feel free to reach out to us. You can email us or call us here anytime. Any of the staff is happy to help. So otherwise, we will see you next week, I guess, for our next workshop, our open house. And usually these happen every single week. So feel free to register. They'll usually be free. Awesome. All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
Thanks.
And thanks, Aletha. Have an awesome
everyone.
day. Okay.
Thanks
Cheers.
for having me. You too.
Of course.
Thanks.
Yep. Hey, bye-bye.
Bye.